I want to ask you a personal question.
Talk to me.
Do you ever mourn the person that you used to be?
I like this show. I like this pod.
From the hardwood to the broadcast booth, Jevohn Shepherd is a Canadian basketball standout, NCAA star, international pro, and now a leading voice on TSN and Raptors broadcasts. He's lived the highs, faced the pivots, and in this episode, he opens up on what it really takes to transition out of sport, the wins, the losses, and the lessons.
Playing sports has a shelf life because Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, at the drop of a dime, you're not sought after anymore, right? We don't understand how to extract hard work and apply it into a different field, but you possess all those skill sets. You gotta work to learn before you can work to earn. Because as an athlete, we did that. Like, we put in all the work before we seen any benefits, before we seen anything materialize. I got away from that and thought, like, man, your name, your presence is supposed to open. No, you gotta put yourself in those positions and show people that you're qualified for whatever you're asking for.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of You Only Die Twice. I'm your host, Warren Ward, and in this episode, I am joined by none other than my broadcast partner, Jevohn Shepherd. In this episode, Jevohn talks about the importance of manifestation, hard work, and what that means to him, and overcoming shortcomings to create your own lane and build your own legacy. If you are someone who is feeling stuck or stagnant, a parent, or interested in becoming a broadcaster, this is definitely an episode that you do not want to miss. But before we get started, the best way to support this podcast is to like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share with a friend. Without further ado, let's get into it.
When this is gone, I die.
I know you had a tat, bro.
I was just looking at this one right here.
Yeah.
Is this new?
No, I've had that for like a year and a half, 2 years.
Might have a couple portraits on my stomach.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know you were tatted like that.
I got
Serious?
My mom, my son.
But yo, this hurts though, no?
It can't hurt more than this.
Yeah.
This here and to get it. I have one over here that I didn't even shade in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like directly on my ribs.
I didn't know you were tatted like that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
No, I'm at like, I just got a new one on my arm. I'm like 15 deep.
Who does yours? You got somebody?
Yeah.
I actually want to get thank you God right here.
Okay.
When Kyrie, when he
Tore his ACL, went to the free throw line.
went to the free throw line, and then said it, and it was like, pretty much we don't say it enough. It
Yeah, I
actually,
know.
like, it just made me reflect. Like, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't, like, whatever your faith is, right? Like,
Absolutely.
so it's like, shit, I think I want that constant reminder for myself every day.
That's dope, man. Yeah, man. That's what mine are too. Mine are reminders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All reminders.
All
to me.
reminders. All reminders.
So
Like,
that'll be the one that I can actually see,
yeah.
like, every day. 'Cause
Facts.
I'm, like, big on that. Like, I know people do vision boards and shit, but I'm like, when we used to do what are those, like, the screensavers, I always used to put shit in there.
Yeah. Words. Yeah.
Even
yeah.
for broadcast, 2 years before, it's gonna sound crazy. 2 years before I stopped playing, I had come back home and I was watching a Raptors game and it was Jonesy, Sherm, and like Leo that did like a panel, and I took a picture of that shit and actually saved, and it was a part of my screensaver of like images.
Now
that
you're
was
one
on
of them.
there. Yeah, so it was weird, but whenever you guys are ready.
No, we are already rolling, big dog.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, all that's already part of the content.
Oh,
we don't
shit.
say go or anything. This is free flowing. I know you're media trained, so we let all that shit out the window. This is a
Oh, let's rock.
okay. There we go.
This organic.
Exactly. Okay, perfect.
Got you. You gotta check if mine's off.
So I always like to start with why. I think it's very important. Like why we do this, why these two people are here with me, and for us, at least I noticed this is not something that's really spoken about quite often.
You're right.
At all. We glorify the ideology of becoming a professional athlete. We glorify the people that are in that space.
Yeah.
And then when they're done, they're often forgotten. Yeah. And I was fascinated with trying to not let that happen to myself.
Yeah.
Where I become almost like a statistic. Where I tried to achieve this, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and now I'm kind of flat on my ass.
Yeah.
But also I'm fascinated with how people have achieved the level of success that they have, but and how they're living with the consequence of the choice of trying to pursue a dream, at a young age. So that's why we do this, and it's to me it's been going very well. I'm happy to do it. It's I think passion is something that you find that you like.
Yeah.
You can like your passion, but purpose is what you give.
Yep.
And this is what we are giving. We are, we're trying to give back to people to prepare them. So I don't think there's a better example, than yourself. So other than me asking you to be here, why is this topic important to you?
Wow. That one is so layered. This is going to be good. You're right, because it's a conversation that isn't spoke of enough. And I can understand why, because it's a very niche situation that it only really happens to athletes, right? In that instance. I shouldn't say that. You have athletes, entertainers.
I think people in general
People
go
in
through
general,
this.
it's like different.
We just don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it, but the thing with athletes is that what makes us unique is from a young age, right? If you go to a grassroots tournament right now, a grassroots basketball tournament, or whatever the case may be, we're sports in general, all those kids, all those athletes are sought after, right? By different clubs. Somebody's pulling them here or there, or wants them to play with their club, and so forth. And then what happens is you get recruited. Again, you're sought after, whether it's going to Canadian University, whether it's going to, Division I. And then now you get into the territory of the elite athlete, who again is now sought after, and they're desired to go on and play pro, and agents are tugging at them, and then professional teams are now offering you contracts, and even if they're not great contracts,
it's still better than.
It's still somebody wants you, somebody wants Warren, somebody wants Shep.
Yeah.
So as an athlete, you're kind of always you're wired in a sense where my equalizer is always just getting in the door and outperforming. But at the same token, you're kind of spoiled and put on this pedestal because somebody's always desiring your skill set, your talent, your services, whatever the case may be. And then you get to this crossroads where, okay, playing sports has a shelf life because Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah.
Now you get to that crossroad where now them knees, you and I can talk to it. Even we sit here, we got to sit in a way where our knees don't hurt us, right? Like
you're not lying.
You get to that point where, okay, your body can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, at the drop of a dime, you're not sought after anymore. Nobody, they don't care who Warren is. They don't care who Shep is. And where this gets interesting is that because it's unfamiliar territory to us, we forget all the life skills. We don't understand how to transfer all the life skills that we've learned into the quote-unquote real world.
Yeah.
Right? We don't understand how to extract hard work and apply it into
a different field.
But you possess all those skill sets. You possess all the intangibles that you need. But because you've always been led to the door, like sought after.
It's a good way of looking at it.
And led to the door. And it's just like, okay, here you are. Just go work hard. Just go outperform.
Yeah.
Nobody's leading you to that door anymore, right? You got to kind of figure that part out on its own. I think that's the unique part about this. For me, it was interesting because I stopped playing my son was born March 2020. And I had a knee injury that just wouldn't heal. And you know what? This was just, I guess it was the grace of God or just God's will, whatever the case may be, because my knee wouldn't heal. I had a surgery, and it wasn't even anything major. It was just something nagging. Just they went in to clean it.
Meniscus?
Went to clean my meniscus, but I had like 7 MRIs. My team couldn't find anything. And they were great because, some of those teams overseas, they can just chew you up and spit you out.
Where were you playing?
I was in Paris. Yeah,
okay.
I was in Paris. And it just wouldn't heal. Then, they gave me more time off, which ironically or coincidentally led into COVID, right? Right into COVID. Actually, no. First, I came back home for the birth of my son because I wasn't playing. So I was like, guys, just grant me that. I go home and I'll be back after. But then we ended up in the pandemic. And everything shut down. So after that, I got to a point where my knee still wasn't fully healthy, and I just didn't want to get in shape again.
Yeah.
Like point blank. I was at a point where I was at that point, I was actually just still holding on because I didn't know what was next. So it wasn't that I enjoyed playing still, because that wasn't a part of the game that I actually loved. It was the working out. It was the, I'm going to work on my ball handles, work on my shooting, and I want to see the improvements in the season. I want to see the improvements in the games. I enjoyed the summer skill development more than I actually enjoyed
playing.
That's
interesting.
Like,
wow.
the games you love.
Yeah.
The summer skill work and development, loved. I didn't love 2-a-days, 8 months out of the year.
No.
Right?
No.
Nobody does.
People don't understand that.
Like, no. And
they think you're over there living life. It's
no.
Yeah, 6 days a week, you are competing.
Right?
Monday to Friday, twice a day. And I remember, I'll never forget, Rock told me, he said, the only song you need to sing as a professional basketball player is "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" That is the only song, because that's all they care about. You could have the greatest practice in the world on Thursday. They don't give a shit.
No.
You're evaluated 4 times a month to keep your job.
Yeah, it's real.
That's real. Yeah.
And I was that. Where did we leave off? Where was I? Lost track there.
You talking about you're in France, and then you loved skill development. You loved
right. So at that point, I was like, I'm just sticking with this thing right now because I want the paycheck.
Yeah, that's
right?
honest. That's
I wanted
honest.
the paycheck because if it stopped tomorrow, I didn't know what I was gonna do next.
You didn't know who you were gonna be next.
I didn't know who I was gonna be. Didn't know how I was gonna make ends meet. And then the other part was I was having a son, right? Like I was having my little one. So there were so many life changes at that point, and I knew I wasn't gonna be an absent father, right? That wasn't gonna be an option for me.
Yeah.
Right. And
respect that too.
You start to try and conceptualize, okay, so many things in my life have to change. I'm used to, you're overseas, you're making lump sum of money monthly. You don't really have expenses.
Yeah.
You don't have major responsibilities. But my life is going to change, right? And you start thinking about it. And if I stop playing tomorrow, man, I can't go to the club. I can't buy the bottle. I can't buy the designer shoes that I wanted. But in hindsight, those are all trivial things that I was concerned about. Right? Very trivial. And I'm thinking my life is going to change with a son, with a little one. No, it didn't. It's just like the bullshit that I used to be doing, you don't need to be doing that anymore, right? So it gave you a bit more perspective. And I think what helped for me in my case was that I got to transition while the world was in a standstill. So I was kind of behind the curtain when it happened, and which was a blessing in disguise. For some athletes, they don't get that luxury. So most right?
Most.
We don't often go through a pandemic.
No,
right?
no.
So it kind of helped in that sense, where there was nothing else to do but shift your mentality. Like, what is next? Like, what am I going to do next? How do you pivot next? And I think that part there is so tough. I've seen a number of athletes just mentally go down, like spiral out. Right? Because and you can attest to this too, because people, we have our spheres, we have our families, we have, friends and so forth, and our network base, but there's very few in your network that have had the same experiences that you have. Right? And that's a part of the sport that we love too, is like, not the practices, but going out to dinner with your teammates.
Absolutely. Because
you guys all shared the exact same experiences. You had a unique one, right? Like I remember being overseas and everybody here, I open my phone and it's buzzing. Warren could be one of the first, I don't know history, but the first player to go from U Sport to get drafted to the NBA.
Yeah.
Like, and that is great, but I think some of the pressures and those expectations came from people that didn't really understand the business of the game, right? So that puts additional pressure on you.
Yeah.
Right? And they don't have a clue. Not to say it's not possible, but even if it doesn't happen, let's keep rolling. Like, support me the same way.
That didn't happen.
And that part doesn't happen.
No, that didn't happen.
Right? So it's and then again, we're also accustomed to being like at the top of the pinnacle. We're at the front of attention. So we also create in our own minds, in our own paradigms, like expectation and pressure on ourselves.
Absolutely. Which is what I was going to ask you next, because when I moved to Brampton, I was 12, and you and Nathan Skinner were the first two people I heard of. Like, I was a soccer player, so I just switched to basketball.
Oh, you had good feet.
I had a little footy in me, you know what I mean? used to get messy out there.
Right,
You know what I mean? No pun intended.
All right, I mean,
yeah, it's cheap sport. That's why we played it. That's what it was. But we didn't have money to play anything else. So, but growing up, you were one of the first names, and your name carried a lot of weight. So, did you put pressure on yourself, knowing your circumstances, where you come from, and how were you able to deal with that? Because everyone here knew who you were for basketball. You know what I'm saying?
I did. How did I deal with it? I think I got to give my family a lot of credit because they come from such humble beginnings, and they didn't have a clue what was going on, right? So they don't.
Which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, I still got to go home and we got to figure it out. Like I got to wash the dishes. I still got to,
Was your identity completely wrapped into basketball though?
It became that for sure.
Okay.
It became that, and that was a big hurdle because, like you're saying, everybody identified me with the sport.
Yeah.
Which I'm appreciative of because it was also a testament to the work that had gone in. Because I was never I was a late bloomer as well, and a lot of people don't know that. Grade 9 and 10 virtually not on the scene at all. Grade 11 really wasn't on the scene. Maybe late grade 11 into grade 12, and that's when things really took off.
What changed?
One, my body developed, right? And with that, puberty happens. People don't speak about that. You become more confident, right? A part of being an athlete is your confidence.
Absolutely.
Right? You get your first dunk, you scream, like everybody sees you, they feel you.
Yeah.
And that happens. Then naturally, genetics start to kick in as puberty happens as well. You're bigger, you're stronger, you're more athletic. But then a big, old and testament to guys like that. I owe Denham Brown a lot. I owe Jermaine Anderson a lot because I got to see those guys' work ethic, and I knew nothing about what the next step looked like. Truth be told, I hated watching college basketball because it was just boring to me. My uncle played football, so football was like my first love or like my first passion, and that was because that was what I seen modeled. And a lot of what we see modeled is what we adapt to, what we go with.
That's right.
So yeah, those guys and Denham specifically because I got to watch him day in and day out at West Hill, working on his craft and showing me by example what hard work looks like. And where I really start to take a love and find love in it is, when I start seeing Jim Calhoun coming to the gym, when I start seeing, Tom Izzo coming to the gym, and all these big name coaches are coming into the gym to watch him work out, and he walks out the gym and he's the man. Like I wanted to be the man, and that's what it boiled down to. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like I wanted to be the guy. When I seen boxes of shoes come in, I didn't have shit. Like next year, I wanted to be that guy that, shipments of merchandise and products coming in so that I could look fly.
Do you find athletes fall in love with what you just said more than the actual game at some point?
It goes hand in hand. Yeah. Like you get
that treatment. It's like it's hard to say I don't want that anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of athletes fall in love with that, but there's also the competitive side. Like and why you fall in love with some of that stuff too is because a lot of the athletes, and you can speak to it too, we're coming from humble beginnings, right? So when I'm wearing size friggin' 10 when I'm supposed to be a 12, it's not that I'm fascinated with the material things. It's that shit. I know I'm not even wearing my right shoe size right now. So when I have the luxury of having, 13 size 13s in front of me, and that's a part of it. It's like that's actually riches at that point. That's currency for me, right? Because in my shoes, when I'm working out, and my toes are like this, right? When I go home, there's a probability that the heat is off, right? Like I gotta turn the oven on and open up the oven, let it warm up so it can warm up the house, right? So there's little things like those. I remember even going to school, and people around wouldn't notice, but I remember going to school and my lunch money, like we were struggling at the time. Like I think my mom would try and scrape together $2, and she couldn't give me a toonie. She couldn't give me a $2 bill, but she'd scrape together coins that she had, right? And I would walk to school, and I would kind of look on the floor to see if I could find a quarter or 10 cents to try and make up. At that point, peanut. This was in middle school. At that point, Peanut Plaza, you can get a patty and cocoa bread for $2.25, right? And that's taxed in. When you got to high school, same ordeal, same concept. Sometimes even worse. McDonald's was $3.99 plus tax about 7%. Then $4.27. I remember the specific
numbers you had to have.
$4.27. But that's because I was walking and I'm on the sidewalk. Friends, everybody's talking. They don't really know your situation, but I'm trying to make up my lunch money so that I could be a part of everything.
Wow.
So, but if you didn't get that, you had to go to Pizza because then you can get a little square and a pop, and it was like $2 and something. Rachel, you feel me, Rachel? She knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So to your point,
bro, you're a 38-year-old man. You still remember that? That's
I remember
that's
that.
impactful.
Like
that
right
is.
now, I'm saying it's giving me chills. But to your point, do athletes fall in love with some of the material things?
Of course.
Maybe they do, but it's coming from a place of not having.
Yeah.
Right? So
absolutely.
it's not the material itself. It's, like I said before, I'm wearing a size 10 and I wear 12. There's, Nike, whatever, Adidas, whatever the case may be, they're sending boxes of 13s. I want those because I want to be able to fit in them. But it's a gift and a curse because it also, the people around you, again, they don't understand it.
Yeah.
So now they think like you have it. They think
you're the man.
You're the man.
Yeah.
No, I'm just still getting by.
Yeah.
Perception is.
Yeah. And I think Instagram feeds into that too. When I see athletes on Instagram, they're posting, it's like all they post is, and it's honestly similar to us now because you post your clips, I post my stuff, photos of us broadcasting. It's no different than an athlete posting all of their athlete stuff. Game this, all these crazy quotes around the game, and then when you're not doing that anymore, it stops. And it's a similar thing. It's like you're trying to show that and the perception of it all, but the reality is you may not be actually living that way.
No, a lot aren't.
And that's the reality.
Yeah, the reality is that and when you get the recognition, there's the ego that it feeds, the dopamine, and all that good stuff.
Of course.
And it's even worse now because a part of the young guys now, part of their resume or the CV is, you can pop open your phone, scouts, coaches, whoever can pop open your phone and pretty much get a whole scout on
you as a person.
So they also as a person, as a player, they also need it, right? So they also need to do it. I think this generation is going to get so interesting because now you're dealing with the NIL era, which creates a whole new.
They got managers getting money now. This is crazy.
Right.
Yeah,
It's great. Like I wish we could go back right now and recoup some of that money. It would be great. But what happens is there's a domino effect. These kids they go from my nephew's 14 right now. In 2 years, who knows what his NIL deal could be? Could be, $50,000 all the way up to $500,000 per year, right? And right away, and I'm saying this because it's kind of the pressures that we felt once you became pro, that everybody around you felt like, okay, you got it. So
you're the man now.
But they also don't realize that you got it for that window, and that window is very short.
Yeah.
So these athletes now that are going to approaching that NIL era, at 17, you have this boatload of money, and I hear some of the parents sometimes when I'm at these games, they're already plotting on it, right? Because they feel like, well, I've invested so much into little John, little Sarah, that automatically they assume, a portion of that is for me.
And then you got adults living like extremely vicariously through their kids. And their dream is through their kids. So it's like, I made you, so now you got to give me some of that.
And to me, that's where I think it creates a bigger problem because, one, that window for the NIL is like a 4 or 5 year window. Max, right? That kid may not go pro. And some of them, the 1 percentiles may go on to the NBA, and great where Canada is now because we're pumping out a lot of those guys. But then there's a percentage that's going to go play pro overseas. The reality is, they're overseas. They're not going to make the money they're seeing through these NIL deals anymore. So there's going to be a big culture shift for them as well.
And the attention won't be the same because
they
don't care.
The same. And I think we're going to have to continue to educate parents and some of the coaches that are overseeing all this is you're your motivation for doing this should not be the currency, the financial side of it. It should be helping, kids realize their dreams. And I think me as a parent, I would never look at it as I'm investing in my son. There needs to be a financial return, because what I'm doing is I'm investing in him learning life skills. I'm investing in, finding a passion. I'm investing in, understanding what hard work is, so that whatever your passion is, whatever your desires, whatever you find love in, go and apply that.
Because in the hope that financial return comes out of that somewhere at a point in time.
For him.
Yes. For
him, but not for me. Like I don't want to put that pressure on my child. I gave you life. You didn't ask to come into this world. Right? So I think it's completely, and everybody's situation is different, but I think it's completely unfair for me to put that additional pressure on you. My thing is find what you love and enjoy it, like explore it.
Yeah, no,
right, and then the money doesn't matter. Like whatever the currency is, I'm in a field or in something that I have a passion for.
Absolutely, that makes sense and very profound. I think I'm not a parent, so I can't really attest to that, but I'd have the same attitude if I was. Yeah. Was there a moment that you were playing basketball and you were saying like, this wasn't just something that you're doing, but you were becoming something because of it?
Ooh, that one, man. Who puts these questions together?
Kind of wrote it, I wrote that one myself.
Golly. Hold on, let me hear that one again.
I would say like you're not just playing the game, but you're becoming something because of the game. So, high school, when you go to Michigan.
Okay, so I would say my final year of high school, I knew I was good. Okay. I knew that. But I also was addicted to the work, the hard work, because it distracted me from so much. It distracted me from
what?
From my own life outside of sport. Like it distracted me from, being broke. It distracted me from poverty. It distracted me from having like having a father in my life inconsistently. It distracted from so much of that, right? And when I knew I was becoming something, to answer that part of the question, I would say going and playing in the Hoop Summit. Because at that point it was, and for people that don't know, Hoop Summit is the world versus USA, like your top 20 players internationally. And I remember I was matched up with Lou Will and Monte Ellis. Oh, it was Lou Will, Monte Ellis, Martell Webster, Brandon Rush was there. And that was the last year you could go from high school to the NBA. And I remember Lou Will and Monte Ellis going back and forth like, nah, you guard him. Nah, you got him. He too strong. He too fast. So they're going back and forth about this, and we're in the game, and I'm like, oh, they're supposed to be like,
they're them, and
they're them,
and you're you.
And I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm here.
Yeah,
like I'm here too, and end up having a good game. And then there was some chatter about, hey, like, he could think about going from high school to the NBA as well, right? So that at that moment, and again, that's all just.
How'd that make you feel though?
Considering I started to float. I couldn't even feel my feet on the floor anymore. Like I was.
Yeah. Considering you just said you want to push all this distraction away, which I understand, and now you're at this pinnacle where it's like you got people that, are going to the league, saying, we can't check you.
I felt good on the basketball side. I felt great. I didn't know what to do with it though, because I also didn't. We came up in a time, and I'm obviously a little before you. We came up in a time where we didn't have enough people around us that understood the business of sport. Yeah. Right. So in hindsight, maybe I should have taken that leap and entered at that point into the draft at that point. Like, who knows what could have happened, right? I'm not saying it would have materialized.
Don't matter. It would have been amazing.
Now you have a lot more knowledge and a lot more support that would be able to navigate a situation like that.
Absolutely.
And we didn't have that.
No.
We just didn't have that. So I didn't know what to do with it. Didn't know what to do with it at all, right? Which was a learning experience. And then I went on to college, went to Michigan, and that was a big change in my life. Like, that was a big change in my life, because I went there. From here, I was the big fish in a small pond, went there, and I was a little fish in a big pond.
Oh, brother. I always say that. I talk about that. Like, going to Ottawa was probably, I know it's not D1, but best decision I made because my confidence level only went like this.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry. And I felt when I left, I could play against anybody.
Yeah.
You know, whereas comparison where you go to a D1 school, you had expectations. Everyone else there is better than you already or at the same level, and you got to go ahead and fight to prove that. So it could affect your confidence.
Yeah, I think, you know, the crazy part is, and it's funny you say that, I think neck down, shoulder down, I was still far more elite than my teammates. And when I say shoulder down, I'm talking about like physically.
Yes, yeah.
Right? But neck, shoulder up, and we're talking about between the ears, everything up here, I wasn't prepared for what I was walking into. And that was the big difference, right?
What were you walking into in terms of mentally?
That was professional sports. No. No, that was professional sports. And you know what? To this day, I still would say, I remember, you know, preseason we used to have open gym, open runs, and Scott Perry, he came by one day. And open gym, there's no pressure. Like, you just go out there and hoop. He came by to me one day and said, "You're gonna be all right, son. You're gonna be all right."
Who's Scott Perry?
Scott Perry, he was the general at the time. He was in the front office of the Detroit Pistons.
Okay.
And now he's now the general manager or assistant general manager. I just seen his name somewhere. I want to say I gotta look that up. But he just recently got
GM job. Okay,
a GM job somewhere around the league. Don't remember where. But he's a vet. He's been around. He was a part of drafting Carmelo to Denver, I believe it was. So he's been around the league for some time. And I remember that, but once we got into regular season, once we got past all the fun and games, like, it was a completely different beast. That it wasn't about talent, it wasn't about skill, because to this day, probably pound for pound, one of the most talented, most physically gifted players in all my 4 years at Michigan. But up here, I couldn't put it together. And it's because I was thinking about everything else. Like, man, you know, 1 day goes by, 2 days go by, a year goes by. Shit, like, I'm not gonna get drafted anymore. I'm not playing up. So, and every day I stepped on the court, I was thinking about the NBA before I was just thinking about the task in front of me.
Being where you are, I can relate to that 100%.
Yeah, and it had nothing to do with basketball. It was all the expectation and pressures that I'd place on myself leaving the small pond. Even little things like, man, my game is going to be on national television, so everybody's going to be at home to watch me. Now they see me sitting on a bench. I get into the game, I'm not even focused. Right?
Do you regret that? Do you regret not being where your feet are?
Yeah. I don't say I shouldn't say I regret it. I should say I learned from it. Because it allowed me to be a better pro, and it helped me understand, and hindsight is always 20/20. Let's just say I had tried to take a leap and go from, you know, high school and test the waters, whatever the case may be. Mentally, I would have been out. I would have been out of the league in 6 months.
Yeah. Because you're not ready for that.
I was not. I wouldn't have been ready for it. So it's a blessing in disguise. That's just who I was at the time. Like, I mean, mentally, was too fragile for that beast.
Yeah, and like what you said earlier about you opening your phone and seeing my name with the draft. Like, I remember when I got to Germany and Rock was saying, like, I was like I couldn't try to be there because I'm like, well, I should be in the EuroLeague now. If they think I'm good enough to be in the league, well, I should. Why am I here? You know, and Rock was like, no, you shouldn't have been there anyway. Yeah. You know, he was like, you got lucky to be there to begin with. So he's like, humble you, but it wasn't sinking in. You know, it was, so it kind of, I totally understand what you're saying.
You have, like, the path you were on, nobody's going to be able to speak to that path ever. Yeah. Not even, like, you and I can sit and have a conversation. You and, you know, a number of guys have played pro, but they're not going to understand having the pressure and the weight on their shoulders. In 1 week, I went from nothing, basically, CIS player, to a potential draft. In 1 week.
Correct. 5 days, I was getting those same boxes you talking about from Nike, all of that, all that.
That's who you're now identified as. That's who you'd be identified as, right? That becomes your identity. So I wouldn't be able to speak to that, right? Because we just didn't have the same.
But we can both speak to the pressure.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's very, very, very unique. You learn so much from it. Do I regret it? No. What I do wish I had a bit more courage to take the risks on my own. Right? Because we didn't have the support that we needed, the knowledge. I shouldn't say just support, the knowledge in the support that we had and the people that we had around us. They didn't have the knowledge. And I should have taken a bit more gamble on my own because I was privy to a bit more. Right? I stuck at Michigan. I stayed at Michigan because I want to prove that I can play here. Right? This is professional sports. It's not. It's not, hey, you're just going to prove yourself. There's a lot more politics that go into it.
So many other things.
There's logistics. There's so many other things, so many other variables that go into it, where a good friend of mine, Epe Udo, he was in a similar situation. Like at Michigan, not really playing much, but he had a better support system. He had a better support team that understood, the business of sports. When we had a coaching change, he took that opportunity to transfer to Baylor. The following year, he became a top, I think he was a top 10 pick. He ended up being a lottery pick. Right, so I do think about it at times, like, okay, if you weren't as stubborn as you were and just been a bit more vulnerable, because his people had tried to get me to transfer as well.
Right, but that wasn't your path.
It wasn't my path, and I'm actually so okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I'm comfortable with it, so I don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
I'm just glad I learned so much because it also made me become a better pro.
Yeah.
Which is the other side where I've seen, a number of those big name guys that accomplish a lot.
Go pro.
In college, they went pro, and they didn't last.
Exactly.
They couldn't last.
Yeah.
Because college is also a situation where, especially the Division I level, you're handheld and you're coddled a bit.
A lot.
Yeah. My first experience over in Europe, I didn't understand where, like, we're driving 7 hours on the bus to go to the game. Like, where's the private jet? Like, in Michigan, we shared the same plane as the Pistons, right? So I'm looking at these guys like, what do you mean we're doing an 8-hour bus ride to a game?
Bro.
Like, who's doing my laundry? Like, who does they're looking at me like, you're not you're not in college anymore. This is and it's not the NBA, so you're not pampered every way every step of the way. No. So it was all really good experiences, man. And it made me tougher, made me a better person.
I mean, it prepped you for a 12-year career.
Yeah, 12-year
career, and then you stopped playing, and that's what got you here right now. Is we're talking about that, and I remember when you stopped. I mean, first of all, I kept seeing your face on TV everywhere I'm looking. You're all over the place. You're here, you're there, and then you're doing. I wrote it down. You're UFT. You're in. I don't know if you remember this. The first time you called me in person. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Okay. Rock gave you my number. So Jermaine Anderson, shout out to Rock. You called me because you were in real estate, and you're like, "Hey Warren, are you looking to buy a house?" I was like, "Jamal, I don't have no money." Yeah. What do you mean? Am I looking to buy a house? What money you think I have? Like, I played a few years overseas, but I don't got Toronto house money yet. Like, no way. So the first time we spoke on the phone, you called me and asked me if I'm looking to buy a house because you just got into real estate. Then you leave real estate. I see you're GM, Ottawa Blackjacks. Then you become a TSN analyst. You're at UFT on the board there. You were doing so many different things at the same time, and to me that was one inspiring but also fascinating because I'm like, how the hell do you have time to do all this stuff? And now people think of me doing the same thing because I'm doing so many different things. It's like, how you have the time to balance all this? So that to me has been probably the most impressive thing that I've seen anyone else do because I can relate to it. I understand all the things you're doing. And now you remember the phone call, right? I'm
remembering it. I'm also like, you just took me down memory lane, and I was just, throwing paint at the wall and seeing what sticks at that point. Right. But I was fortunate because I was good with my money, so I had money saved. So I wasn't cool. Some guys retire and they have to have, there's a sense of urgency where I got to figure it out tomorrow. I gotta figure it out.
I had that much.
Yeah, and it happens. It comes at you quick because that last buzzer goes. You come back home and like, okay, summer's cool. 2-3 months of summer, and then you look at your credit card statement, like, oh shit, gotta pay that, and then there's September.
Now, I was injured, so money was going to that. And
September comes, injured. I didn't get a call that says, hey, we want you to come over here. Hey, here's a contract. But yeah, like I was able to, like, real estate's always been a passion. I think Leo was on here before too, Leo Routens, and he coached me with the national team. And one thing he always said is, you guys go overseas and You guys make a, handsome amount of money year after year, right? Come back home and purchase a property every summer if you can, or every other summer if you can.
Did you do that?
And you know what? The first couple years, I was still hesitant because I didn't understand the financial literacy of it.
Okay.
I didn't understand the real estate literacy.
So who taught you that?
That was trial and error.
Oh.
That was trial and error. My first property I purchased, I lost. I shouldn't say I lost a shit ton of money, but there was a shit ton of unexpected expenses that came up, and you learn that along
That's
the way.
home ownership, bro.
Right? I remember, I put down my down payment, and then, the lawyer said, well, you need another 10%. I looked at him, so who's going to pay it?
Right.
And
land
it was
transfer tax.
Land transfer tax.
Yeah.
So it was like, I mean, you either do it or you lose, you forfeit your deposit.
That's right.
Right? And this was all new. This was all new to me. And at that point, I actually hadn't signed another deal yet. So, and I also didn't understand leveraging the bank, right? So I pretty much put, a shit ton of, like, half of this money into this place.
Okay.
But I also at the time, I hadn't done taxes here. I hadn't done, and I was making money abroad. So there's so many things logistically that nobody had, pretty much put me on game to, which it was like a very unique situation. It worked itself out, and then after that, I actually took the real estate course just to try and understand. It was actually not to be a realtor, but it was just to try and understand, like, the logistics of everything.
But you became a realtor.
But yeah, I got my license, and then and then I stopped playing, and I said, okay, I got to make money somehow. And it was also the urgency I placed on myself was because my son was born. So I'm like, I got to do something. I can't just sit here, and I'm haunted by the stories of guys, spiraling out and not doing anything, and they don't know what to do, and they just can't make ends meet. And I didn't want to. That haunted me. Yeah. Because, I had my son.
Were you able to, like, see a path for yourself, though, even though you were technically, like, similar? I was scared of what the future was gonna hold. I'm not hoping anymore. I'm not doing this thing anymore, so I don't know how I'm gonna make money. But were you able to, like, see a path for yourself? Because I remember you were doing real estate, then you got into CBC.
Yeah.
Right. So how did all that come about?
So it's funny you say that. We were talking right before. I'm big on speaking things into existence and, just manifesting it. So there were 2 years before I'd retired. I would always wake up in cold sweats because I knew the end was near.
Damn.
And I'm like,
cold sweats, bro?
Cold sweats. I'm like, man, what do I do next? How am I going to keep money coming in? Like, and I'm so accustomed to this whatever this lifestyle is, yeah. Whatever it is, and it's really just all in our head. You know what
it is. It's great. You know what it is.
We created ourselves, and it's all in your head at the end of the day, right? And so, in fear of losing that part, I would wake up in cold sweats. So I'd come back home, probably around April, and was watching the Raptors game, and I'd seen Jonesy, Sherm, and Leo on a broadcast, and I actually took a picture of them. Doing the broadcast, doing the Raptors broadcast, right? And saved the picture in my phone, and I have my screensaver. I have, a number of things goals I want to achieve, or, things that I want to get done in my life. And that was on that screensaver. So to your point, like, did I see a plan or blueprint? I think we always create our own plan. Like, if you put your mind to something and actually take the steps to it, like, you kind of see it through, like, bring it to fruition. So for me, that was the start of that. But I'm just big on manifesting things and just being very clear with what you want. Like, when I put that goal in my phone, I just put a picture of them, right? And then I got my first gig at CBC doing some Canada basketball work, and I said to myself, man, this is great, but like, I want to work in the NBA. I want to work on the NBA. Yeah. So then I had to go back to this and, like, write on it, like, be specific, NBA, broadcast, Toronto Raptors, and stuff like that. And then finally, just your hard work and opportunity always meet. And then people look at that and they say luck. Like, and that's the part that frustrates me the most is.
Really?
Yeah, because people always say, oh, you're lucky, or you're fortunate, or you get those opportunities because you people know who you are, or they identify you with something. No, they identify you with something because you work hard, right? And you put yourself in a position to open those doors. So it's been good, but I'm always like mindful of people calling people lucky or saying somebody's lucky, or
I think luck is involved though. The
luck
position you're in is because we're there's so many things that we're not in control of, right?
You're right, but the luck for me was genetics, like being 6'6", right? That was the luck. But there's a lot of people that are 6'6" that don't put in the work to become an elite athlete.
That's fair.
Become,
But I mean, from
whatever
from a broadcasting perspective, or in like working in the industries that we're in, like a little bit of that is the timing involved, and the people that like you, that put your name forward, and which we're gonna get into in a second.
For sure. There's always that.
I want to ask you a personal question.
Talk to me.
Do you ever mourn the person that you used to be?
Do I ever mourn the person I used to be? No. I like this show. I like this pod. I don't mourn that person I used to be because I learned so much from that person. Like
what? You say two things. What's the two things you learned the most?
Confidence.
And big one.
Confidence and calmness. I think.
Confidence? Why calmness?
When you are able to like get everything out of your head, all that we create in our heads, and all this, get rid of all those expectations, all those pressures that we put on ourselves, and you have health, you have a roof over your head, and you start to like simplify life and like the little things that we should actually be enjoying, we live a good life. Life is good.
Yeah, life is good.
Life is good when you get away from all the things that don't matter.
Yeah. And
I think that's
the calmness.
That's the calmness that I'm probably.
And I have a very good friend of mine, Zana Amin. He always talks about the story that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And he always talks about everything that happens to you in life. You remember it in a way, and you tell yourself the story, and that's what you believe.
Yes.
So if you believe that your experience as a pro basketball player means nothing and you're a failure, then that's what it is.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And if you believe that it was a great experience and it taught you confidence and calmness, then that's what it is.
That's what it is. I think you can accomplish so much with just those two things.
Just those two things. Yeah, that's amazing.
I think those are bigger than any and experience, knowledge, confidence, and calmness are bigger than any like institutional education that you could get. Like that's gonna get you to the door. That's gonna get you in the door, and then that's also gonna give you the power and the drive to
shout out Michigan,
right? Yeah, it'll get you everything you need right there.
At what point did people stop saying this? This is the one that relates to both of us. So this is my second personal. At what point did people stop saying, "Hey, are you still a basketball player?" Or when did you stop playing, and when did you start working for the Raptors? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and to the first two, those questions haven't stopped.
Yeah, are you still playing?
Are you still playing? You still hoop? Man, I am 39. What am I? What part of me looks like I hoop? And I'm like, nah. And then it's funny because when you get that response, they look at you crazy, like, for real?
Yeah.
I'm like, what did you expect, like, to do this
forever?
Forever?
With LeBron.
Like, I don't understand that. And again, it goes back to the initial point of people actually don't understand, like, all that goes into the sport at a high level.
Yeah.
And all that. We understand it from, and majority of people understand it from going to the rec center or, high school basketball, because that's where it ended for them. So it's kind of like, that's the nostalgia of it. And then life happens and they forget that life happened for you too. Life happens for you too.
Just in a different way.
We're talking about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Why would I still be? Like
that's a good one.
Outside of LeBron, who still is?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, facts.
Right? So
facts.
And then for the Raptors, they I don't think they realize that I don't work for the Raptors.
Yeah,
right?
They say that. That's why I said that.
You work for
the network. The network. Exactly.
But that's I think that comes with the territory, and you got to kind of just absorb it as well. It's been funny for me because I'm from the city, so I got a lot of city people, city friends, and they'll come to the games, or I'll get messages, and sometimes I'll be on air, and there'll be a man that pulls up behind you and be like, yo, fam, love what you're doing, eh? Love to see you. The other day, somebody came to me. No, a man came to me. The man came to me and said, yo, fam, the man them in the bin were watching you. We love to see what you're doing. The man them seen it on TV, they were banging on the. I had to press my cough button. Like, I'm out here.
Yeah, you're making me cough, bro.
I'm like, what are we talking about? But it also, at that moment.
And they probably said it just like that, too. Yeah.
No. That was verbatim. Like,
I hope you know we're going to clip that, huh?
Yeah, you guys do what you want. Say, yo, fam, the man them more in the bin were. Then there was another time somebody came up to me and was like, yo, fam, I just came home.
Why is it yo, fam? That's the first thing.
Yo, bro, fam, I just came home. Love seeing what you're doing. I get it. I get it. But again, it also shows you how much you've progressed, because that's also the world and the environment that you're coming from.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And you can never fully like disconnect yourself from it. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, it's a reflection of, because they're not in their world, in their mind, they're not doing anything wrong. Mm-hmm. But they also weren't able to conceptualize and understand, like, he's working. Like, we can't do this right now, right? And it's just, again, it boils down to experiences. It boils down to exposure. 2 different lanes, 2 different worlds. But that's also where, like, someone like yourself and myself are here to, like, a part of our duty, responsibility is to help those people, like, see a little different, right?
Absolutely.
When people stop me outside, or they'll say, TSN, or make those comments, I think it's great. Like, obviously, you love it. It strokes your ego 1,000%. But
at least you can admit that. That's
no. I'm going to keep it real.
I'm
going to keep it real. But what means more is when, like, kids that look like us see that, and it's like, I can
do that.
I can do that, or I can have the conversation with them on achieving something outside of just sports and entertainment.
Absolutely.
Like, and I can also now maybe make a connection. Like, I think what's changed now for us is, like, our resources have also changed. So to help some of the people that from our communities, we also have a bit more to offer in terms of access and resources, which we didn't have before.
No. And in fact, I think it's since I stopped playing, that has only grown.
Yes.
And I didn't see that for myself. I thought I don't know why I thought Will Caesar. Yeah. I told Will, back in the day, I was like, man, when I stop playing, I'm going to go become a truck driver, because I was like, it's easy money. You just drive trucks. So now he calls me driver. So I don't know why I thought that was the plan to go. It's like, I'm escape and just drive across the U.S. I don't know why I thought that, but it's like.
But you know why, too? Because you were thinking, I'm going to make the money fast. It's going to be good money. It's something similar to playing, because the money's going to come in lump sum quick. But I'm also behind the curtain. Nobody's going to have to see me. Right. That part I can hide. I can make my money. I can hide. I can go outside and live the same lifestyle. Yeah. And nobody's going to know.
Exactly.
And
No, you're absolutely right. I looked at your LinkedIn. There's something that I do often, and I try to find athletic LinkedIns or just people in general. I'm fascinated by what they put on there. You don't have much on your LinkedIn.
No.
And I find that so interesting, because you're, like, in terms of your educational resume and the success you've had, those 2 things probably don't equate.
Right.
You've been able to attain so much for yourself without having the quote unquote corporate resume.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you, and what do you think about that?
It's funny, because I was actually the other day, I actually applied. I got accepted to a grad program.
Congratulations.
I was gonna go back. I'm still considering it, contemplating it, but I'm making sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. Right. A part of it is I want to be able to set a new standard, a precedent for my son. Right. And I found when I was in the States, there was so many, people that were, and both black male and females that were educated, that could go on Saturday, stand on couches, pop bottles, have fun. But then Monday through Friday, educated, corporate, smart people. And I don't see that culture here as much. And for my son, I want him to be able to like see everything. Like when he looks at me, I want him to be able to see everything. Okay, Dad.
Well, you're doing everything.
He
so
was
it's
he was
great.
like he was into sports. He, you know, he's educated. I'm the first person in my family with a degree.
Same.
Right.
Yeah.
And
a university degree. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I also want but I also want you to see like the highest. So let me go get an MBA. So I tick every box for you. Like career-wise, it's not going to make a difference for me, right? Because a part of that too, I think, you know, I can get to any door and walk myself to the door, get in, and I'll work, right? But just ticking those boxes, and there's the accomplishments and the resume go hand in hand. I don't know if
the reason why I asked the question, I'll make it easier for you, is because I always found growing up, I was told you have to have this or you won't get anything.
Okay.
And we don't have that.
Yeah.
You know, I have, you know, like we both have degrees, but the experience required for us to be high paid individuals, those two things maybe don't equate. And like the world is different, obviously, but I find that most athletes believe that they have to have a resume of, you know, set degree education for them to attain success.
I think that's going to be our generation of athletes.
Bingo.
Because, you know, to your sentiment there, I heard that exact same thing, but I also think we don't take into account, or we don't really consider why we were hearing that, right? Our parents, or I can speak for mine, like I'm a first generation Canadian.
Yeah.
Right. So they came here they came here and everything was different. They did like factory jobs, right? So for them, education meant you're going to be better. You're going to do better because that's something they didn't have access to. Those are the resources that they didn't have. So they were just wired to, okay, you come to North America. If my kids get an education, a post-secondary, they're doing better than me. Not understanding that doesn't guarantee you much. So they had the right idea, but I think they were limited in their scope. They were limited in like, it's not the end all be all. So we also came up thinking, okay, you got to do this. You got to get this. You got to get this education. And I'm not taking away from, you know, any formal education.
Me either.
But it doesn't guarantee you riches. It doesn't guarantee you wealth. It doesn't guarantee you a great job. We have a number of people in our country that have degrees that don't have jobs.
Yeah.
Right? And I know we also, a lot of us fell into, you know, getting an education that we didn't necessarily love, but because you were wired to, hey, you have to go get an education, you ended up spending this money that you are probably paying back now.
Exactly.
You're forced to, and still not in that career. But they were like, our parents were trying, our grandparents were trying.
And
it was just something different.
Yeah.
Like they took a hell of a risk coming from Jamaica. They took a hell of a risk that I probably wouldn't do. I wouldn't just leave Canada today and go live in a foreign country and say I'm going to start life.
Yeah.
Like without a reason. Like I'm not going to go pick up and go to Italy and start life tomorrow. I was going there because the contract was already signed before I left here.
I was going to say, I would go to Italy right now if all things considered.
As long as I know I'm coming back. Or there's got to be some, you know, some money there for me or a job there for me. But yeah, I think from there's so many changes that we went through, and because there was a cross of generations, there was a cross of, you know, how parents raised, like they're accustomed to their whole little district where they're from, a community raising their family.
Their family, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could fall asleep at an auntie's house, cousin's house, whatever the case may be. They moved to Canada, different pressures, right? Yeah. Generationally, they're different. Culturally, raising families here is completely different than raising families back home.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But they also came here for better, right? So I always tip my hat, you know, to that previous generation because, again, they took a hell of a risk, worked out for us, but we came up in a completely different time. There was so much intersection, and then now we're late to the tech world.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I work in tech, so not me.
Yeah. Well, no, you're always ahead. You're always ahead.
But no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
my point was that I hope people, when they, like those who watch this, they don't feel the pressure of equating a resume to their success and trying to decipher. Like, it's great to have, and I'm not saying don't, you know, don't pursue that because we are both like we both have that, but you need other things, right? And that's the point.
The thing is, it's like this. Again, like who's to say what a resume is? Like,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like it's not this formal or this corporate.
It's experiences.
It's experiences, right?
Yeah.
And how can you parlay that, right? And one of the things I learned too was when I stopped playing, I don't remember who was it that told me, like, your resume is everything that you've done.
Leo.
Like put that into.
Leo said that.
Yeah. Put that into all the skills that you've learned.
Yeah.
Right? All those skills are what need to go into your resume. And how do you like convey that? It's not, hey, I worked at TD or I worked in the government, because people do that too. But what are you able to extract from that? So yeah, it's like we fall into this world of this is the format, this is the formula. You have to fall into this, like
that's right, into that box,
and not necessarily.
The reason why we are here essentially is we both have a similar job.
Yeah.
What do you love about broadcasting?
I work 2 days a week. No, I love the fact that, we get to express something we've done all of our life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's just on a different platform where we've lived basketball our entire life.
Yeah.
And now you get to go out there and you can never be wrong in your job because everything you see is right. People are listening to you and want to hear your perspective, your lens. And if they challenge that, so be it. To hell with them. Like, you can't be wrong for what you see. Like, that's the beauty in it. But outside of that, I think it keeps you close to the sport. It keeps you close to the thing I miss most about playing was like the camaraderie, like the conversations, and it gives you that aspect of it. And again, nobody outside of like those locker rooms and in that space will be able to relate to everything like those guys, the players, the coaches, support staff go through, right? So when I hate when I see people being overly critical of players, right? And I'm like, you don't know the pressures that person is under. You can't walk in their shoes. Do you understand what it takes to even be playing at that level?
Yeah.
And then people saying like they have it good. No, they don't. They have it. You only think they have it good because they're making millions. That comes with more problems. Yeah. But they eat, shit, sleep, bleed the same way we do. Like they have the same emotions that we do. So the beauty is just, man, we're talking hoops. We just get to talk hoops every day.
Yeah, and I asked that because you asked me about this tattoo, and I was saying to you, well, I didn't say it, but I love broadcasting because of the social responsibility. Like, I now get to be somebody's expert about something. I could change their perspective. I never know who's listening to me. And if I look at the people that I look up to, whether that's a musician, Malcolm X, like anybody I look up to, they've done it auditorily. Yeah. Where they've used words. And we often say that actions have, so much meaning and power, but words do too.
Words definitely
and
do.
We are in a position to I know we're talking about basketball, but like you said, to your point, I got into this because I hated that. I hated the fact that people that work in our space never dribbled a basketball. Yeah. They actually don't know what it feels like to do some of the things that you and I get to talk about. Yes. Because when I hear you speak about it, I know you're speaking from it. You felt what it's like to do that. You know how to cut a 45 angle. You know what it's like to chase someone off a staggered. You know what that's like.
Yeah, and that's what I struggle with the most too, is because, and I've got to learn, like, accept and try and see it from a broader lens. But the criticism and then the analytics of the game have gone like so far south.
It's
Now for me, I think it's great to as a coach to form your systems. But when I hear, a lot of people critiquing the game based on analytics, I think they don't completely understand that this game is not algorithms. It's actually read and reactions, right? It's actually instincts at the end of the day. So you completely omit that component when you're saying, okay, this person has had a bad 3 games because they've shot 3 for 23 or 3 for are you taking into account that person is now in the starting lineup? They're playing against starters. They're probably playing against a lengthier defender, faster game, or have you taken in, the numbers don't take that into account.
And that's the feel of the
right?
game.
And you can always, and I don't take anything away from the analytics. I just don't like being too critical on guys because of it, because you can formulate a story and a narrative any way you want by playing with the numbers, right? Whether you're looking at it from a 3-game window. I could have the same player, and you look at his, and Nick Nurse always said, like, you need to look at these numbers in 4-game windows, right? Because there's different.
I do 10.
Right? I can look at this player for 4 games. Like, you look at Shea, SGA. The first 3 games of this series, he has shot the basketball horrible against Memphis. He just had a great one again in game 4, closed them out. You look at the next 4 games, it's going to look like 2 completely different. One's going to look like a completely inefficient player, and one's going to look like the most efficient player we've ever seen. Right? So that's where I'm like, and you and I are, from a player's lens, is going to have different perspective. But it's also helped me look at the game from their lens as well. And I realize that sport is like art, right? I can look at this picture and see it one way, and you are going to look at it and see it completely different.
And we're both right.
We're both right.
Yeah.
So that is where I had to learn and accept, hey, no, I'm not always right.
Yeah, for sure.
You're heavy on the analytics because that's how you see the game, right? That's how you conceptualize it, and that's fine. That's fine as well. So the frustration that I had before is like, no, step back and look at this game like it's art. It's actually art, and we just have 2 different perspectives.
Yeah. How far you want to take broadcasting?
Whew. If I can do this for 80 years, I'm going to do it for 80 years. If, TSN, like, I would ultimately want to be at whatever the height of this thing looks like, I want to do that. And I think, to your point earlier about having some luck, and there are challenges with that as well, because we didn't play in the NBA, right? So
we're capped.
So
I'm glad we recognize that.
Right, like, we're kind of like, we're extremely fortunate for where we are.
100%.
But I'm not going to put a cap on it.
Right. neither would I.
I'm not. Yeah. But in their eyes, whoever they are, like, we're not going to be the first choice when
some NBA guy retires.
An NBA guy retires,
that's fact.
So we got to be exceptional at what we do, and that's fine. Right now, I just understand the reality of it, that Vince Carter wants to come and broadcast. Vince Carter broadcasts. Like, LeBron retires tomorrow and wants to go into broadcast. Everybody gets bumped down a bit.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's just the reality of what it is.
Right.
But if not, I think it goes hand in hand. Front office and NBA front office. Like, I love the.
You still do that. Right?
Yeah. I love the development of players. I love the scouting of players. I love the projection, putting the pieces to the puzzle together.
Is that why you've taken on so many different roles? You want to be able to have a little piece of everything, because you've been a GM already.
Yeah, so I did that to really see what it was like, and if I would enjoy it, having the pressure of it, and I definitely did. You learn a lot.
How did you, for those who don't know, because usually what happens is people will ask, like, you're a broadcaster, so they think we make decisions on who gets involved. So we don't. We have no say on who gets what job. So how did you get the job as a GM? How did you get the job as a broadcaster?
As a broadcaster, again, it's funny because a lot had happened. During the pandemic was also George Floyd. Right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like across the globe, there was also more initiatives to increase Black presence, right? Which is, I'm probably, treading a fine line here. And there was just more of a push. And I think timing mattered as well. And it was, one, you're qualified. Right, you're qualified, but I think that was even more incentive to, let's make sure we're being inclusive as well, and being ready for that position, being qualified, doing the job well, and then shifts from filling these quotas to no, that person actually does this job really well, right? So it was a mix of things that opened doors up on both sides,
right?
And I think a part of that is the gift in it is getting the right people in those positions that can also make change, also show that you're qualified, also have the right presence, do the job well, so that it open doors for other people that look like you, sound like you. And I struggled with that at first too, because I thought I had to sound like what I've seen, right, when I was actually hired for who I was, right? And then the unfortunate side to that, and it wasn't just in like my transition, it's just like internationally, globally, it was unfortunate that things had to come to that for
You to be seen.
not just me, just for there to be a push for more equality right across the board. I think that's people had to lose lives, and you had to like riots across the globe world for that increased presence, right? And in my case, I can't attribute it directly to that. I can only imagine like, hey, maybe this is a part of it, right? So I'm just saying it because of all the timing, like the pandemic, not much was happening. Then, the world's at a standstill. We're seeing what's happening in America, and, more opportunities for everybody that looks like us, which is a good thing, increased presence. You just got to take advantage of them.
Were you seeking those out, or were they coming to you?
Oh, I was always actively seeking. Okay. Like I was actively seeking. I remember the first couple calls I made, like, hey, I want to get into this. I got, and this has nothing to do with TSN. This was completely unreal. This is before I even got to the TSN doorstep. I got a couple, hey, you should probably think about something else, or think about, going overseas. I think I even heard overseas, going back overseas, or, going to the States. Maybe there's more opportunities. So I heard, like, which was gut wrenching, I heard a no. We're not accustomed to hearing no's. Right? Like I said before, you're accustomed to being sought after. And I'm looking at on the phone like, you got to be crazy. You know who I am? Like, and yeah, they do. They don't care anymore.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They do. They just don't care.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? Just got to chop wood, carry water, and continue to. You got to work. And I always say this, you got to continue to work. You got to work to learn before you can work to earn. And that's the part that I had forgot, because as an athlete, we did that. Like, we put in all the work before we seen any benefits, before we seen anything materialize. And I just thought, I got away from that and thought, like, man, your name, your presence is supposed to open. No, you got to put yourself in those positions and show people that you're qualified for whatever you're asking for. Right? And then once I got back to that, I was like, okay, I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to do everything pro bono until this becomes something.
And you did that.
And I did that. I did that. It was like, okay, I'm going to work to show you, because I heard a lot of no's. And again, I thought you were crazy. Like, how could you tell me no? Like, you've got to be shitting me. And then, things worked out.
Well, now that you have a yes, how are you using your platform to speak on things outside of, what you're doing? Because you're now a public figure.
Is that what it is?
Apparently. So that's what they call them.
You know what? I don't think I use the platform to speak on many other topics, but what I do is, like, I like to talk to, especially like young youth. I like those one-on-one, like, we sit down, we speak, we have conversations. I want you to bounce ideas off me. Like, I want to hear you speak, because a lot of times we don't listen. Like, we don't have conversations to listen. We're usually doing the speaking, right? These kids go to school, the teacher's speaking to them. Parenting. You're
definitely speaking to Rach right now. I can see her going like this.
Hey,
sure,
I see that. Hey,
the listening is big. She always talks about listening, active listening.
Right.
Yeah.
You go home, your parents are speaking to you. You're at school, you get in trouble, you go to the principal's office. Nobody is asking questions. They're speaking to you. Right. So what are you going through? Like, what's at the foundation? Okay, you're acting up. Like, what is going on here? Right. And sometimes when you give kids and even athletes like an opportunity to just speak, like, it gives them a comfortable space, right? Let it out. Like, these kids might be going through something. People might be going through something that is manifesting itself in an action. That doesn't mean it's a bad person. Let's talk about something. If I can just sit down and like reach one kid when we're having those conversations, we've done something. Like, we got something done.
Absolutely.
But am I going up there and you know, and talking about politics on my platform? No. I'm not. No.
Yeah, I don't think we ever will either.
No. I'll sit that one out.
Yeah. What's a misunderstood skill in broadcasting that people don't know about?
Misunderstood skill is it's funny because different scenarios call for different, like live games, timing, and like chemistry, and the nuances of the game, and having a feel for it's funny having a feel for your broadcast partner's cadence, because then you know when you can insert yourself or when you can't, or you know, that sort of stuff. Aside from that, it's just, you know, vocabulary as well, like something that has to be, and I got to work on that, and you know, bridge words, yeah. And I found myself like reading a lot more now just to try and expand that, and going back to school, like that was always like a sore spot for me, like English. Funny enough, because I had a English teacher. A couple of English teachers at that time were reading a lot of Gothic books, right? Which is, I also couldn't bring Gothic books home because my family's they're spiritual.
Jamaican.
Yeah, I'm Jamaican.
Yeah,
Put it that way, right? So, what is Harry Potter and what is Goosebumps and no, take this out of me yard.
Yeah.
So
Duppy thing.
So on one end, I'm getting in trouble for not getting the homework done. And then on the other end, I'm getting in trouble because the grades aren't there for, like my English grades aren't there because, again, there's an intersection that mom is not understanding and teacher's not understanding. And neither one of them are putting it together that, guys, you're telling me to do homework and you're telling me to get the homework out of your house. And I'm not interested in any of it.
And they're not listening.
And nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Nobody's listening, but nobody's wrong. They're not wrong. No, they're just not listening.
Yeah.
Right? So now, like, subconsciously, I'm out because I had those poor English grades. Subconsciously, I'm always like, I got to be better. Like speaking, I got to be better writing, which I'm not bad, but it's just.
Did you ever think you'd be doing what you're doing right now as a broadcaster?
No, I dropped out of. I had a public speaking class in Michigan my freshman year. I was actually in sports management, and there was a public speaking class, and I dropped out of it because I was so scared of speaking publicly.
That's amazing.
I had cue cards like you did right there. I remember one project, it was actually on Michael Jordan. I tried to make it as simple as possible. I had cue cards. I got up there today, and every letter on that cue card started to fly off the paper. Every letter. I was up there. I was so nervous. I was sweating. I was doing every letter. I don't even know. To this day, I don't know. I walked out of that class, and I dropped it. I said, listen, I need to go into sociology because I can't do a public speaking class. And I went into social.
And now you're no problem speaking on camera.
And now here we are. No problem.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, funny how things work out.
Yeah.
It's funny how things work out.
I had a stutter, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, growing up, man. Yeah, big time stutterer. So for me to be public speaking is, my mom just said I talk too much. So growing up, she just said you was always a yapper. She said you came out the womb yapping, but.
And you just worked it out?
Basically, yeah. I calm myself down, breathing more. It helps the cadence, but I kind of worked it out. I didn't go to like
Speech
actually
therapy.
get help. Yeah, speech therapy.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't do that. So, but I never thought I'd be broadcasting. I did this because it was a little bit of a desperation. Like Dwayne Watson was like, maybe you should give this a try. I'm like, it pays?
Right.
Like, yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I got my start.
Interesting.
But,
I didn't know that.
very similar. Like I didn't do public speaking training. Never. I went to College of Sport Media afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started working in this, but prior to that, similar to you, like I never would have thought I would be in, I'd be in broadcasting, and then that's become a part of my success. So, what do you acclaim success to for yourself?
Sorry, before I get there, I'll also say, like, just even hearing you're like a part of your story, like, that's impressive that you have this going on as well.
Thank you.
Because
appreciate that.
Like, it's also a conversation that nobody has. It's also a conversation
Privately
they do.
Privately we do. Yeah.
But it could be transferred into like so many other lanes. It's not just sport.
No,
right?
this is for people.
This is of the people.
That's right.
Right. So that's courageous, and it's a gamble and takes a lot of courage to like take a leap and say I'm going to do something on my own.
Well, I'm not on my own. I got
you got a great team. Like,
I got a lot of people.
You got a great team. You guys do a great thing here.
Yeah.
But like, you get what I'm saying from not having the big support and building like your baby ground up. No, that takes a risk in itself.
And putting myself in front of the camera, because most people don't want to do that, like us. Like everyone, like, I don't know about you, but everyone now tells me how to podcast or what I should do podcasting or how to broadcast, but they are not in front of the camera. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and like that's the world we live in, is that people, no one wants to be the person in the arena that everyone's looking at. They just want to be the person looking.
What did Jay say? Tell you how to do, but they never did it?
They never did it, exactly.
I done had so many of those conversations. Yeah. People tell me how to do what I'm doing.
Right. With no experience, you know?
You've never been there.
Exactly. So it takes a lot, but I've gotten to a point now where I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being, you know, you're gonna be laughed at, you're gonna be judged, you're gonna be, but I won't live long enough to care.
What Warren's also not telling y'all is he has a social battery that does not go down. Like, he's good. Like me, my shit goes down. I gotta charge mine up. He's go. So this is his lane.
That is true.
As far as like success, what I attribute success to, success is happiness. Like, that ultimately, that's it. Like, you can, and it's also so subjective, because money can be, you know, that could be your motivating factor. It could be a number of things. And I always say, just like, happiness is truly success, because, you know, we're in and around the NBA a lot, and there's a ton of money in the NBA, but you don't always hear everybody saying like, I'm happy for today. I'm grateful for this moment. I'm grateful. They miss that.
I've never heard anyone say that.
It never.
Now I think about it.
But you hear more of like the issues day to day, or like who's disgruntled, or, you know, who should, you know, wanting this role, or I should be doing more.
Traded. You should be fired. I should do. You
always hear that.
You only hear complaining.
You only hear complaining. And, you know, one scout had said to me one time, is like, coaches spend so much time worrying about what a player doesn't do, and not enough on, you know, what does he do well, right? And it's similar in this aspect, is like, and it's human nature, right? We always focus on the negative, and we always forget like the positive. So for me, it's like, there's never going to be enough money, because money's not going to equate to happiness. And to me, happiness is the ultimate success. Like, I came here I was on a bachelor party trip for a friend of mine.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that, by the way. You came off a plane. That's dope.
I wasn't, you know, we've been trying to figure this out for so long.
Yeah.
And wasn't going to miss it. And just being there, you know, we're in Colombia, and I'm like, travel is inspiring too, because you get to see, and we traveled playing, right?
Yep.
But you get to see different cultures. You get to see, you know, people have different perspectives, different ways of thinking, you know, logistics, operations of their lives are so different across the world. And just even like foods, like, we're all so different but so similar, and you only really get to get that experience through traveling and so forth. For me, that's a part of happiness. That's a part of success, is like being able to travel and just enjoy like what is different.
Yeah. I mean, we could do this for about 4 or 5 hours. I got a lot of questions to ask, but a few more before we kind of wrap it up. But now that you're on to this second life, how do you want the old Jevohn Shepherd to be remembered? And how do you want this version of yourself to be remembered?
The old Shep, they don't even call me Jevohn back then. So
they call you Shep.
The old one is Shep. The old person is Shep. I think I'm fine with how I remember. Like, you know, I think I've been identified or recognized as like one of the first to really start the wave of reopening the doors for a lot of the Canadian athletes to go south of the border.
No question.
And I think I wear that with a badge of honor. It feels good. Like when I hear, you know, I'll get messages sometimes like, yo, you've inspired. Thank you what you've done for Canadian basketball. And sometimes I look at the message, I'm like, what, are we serious? Or are you trolling me? Or like,
you feel old?
I am old. No, it's just a number. I wear that with a badge of honor, yeah. And then I see the success that all these kids are having now, which they're so far removed, generationally removed, that they have no clue. They probably don't have an idea as well, which is fine. But it's like, wow, like you were a part of that story. You're a part of those building blocks. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. And the new one, one of the better dressed. One of the better, you know, got some good suits.
That's good. That's good. That's funny.
No, I think, again, what I like about this is similar to my basketball career. You're at the doorstep of something different again, like laying new foundation. And you know, as sports on a whole continue to grow in our country, I hope that, you know, in the next 3 decades, somebody says something similar to me, like, you know, you did so much, thank you. Like, seeing you on that platform changed how we felt. Like, it was inspiring to us.
Absolutely.
And maybe, you know what, I think maybe my journey is this. I don't make $1 trillion. I don't make $1 billion. I don't make, you know, millions of dollars. But
if you do, just remember us here.
I'm coming right back here. I'm coming right back here.
Just send a little donation. We need it.
No, you know what? You guys are gonna get some big sponsors.
Hey, because
this right here is real. That's right. This conversation is needed, and
Appreciate
it's for people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that to me is like the biggest reward. I know like people that do contract work or even in real estate, they always say the biggest reward is a referral, and I think in this, the biggest reward for me is hearing somebody say, "Thank you, you inspired me," or like you set an example. And I'm like, wow, because you don't realize it when you're going through it. Like when you're in that mode, you don't realize the amount of people that you're actually impacting. Like you're actually changing lives that you don't realize, that you don't take into account. So for me, that's the biggest thing.
It's interesting because you've gone from student
to
now teacher. You know, you talked about your son quite often. So just quickly, what are other than what you said, what are some things that you want to teach him, and what are you passing on to your nephew? Because he's going to go through what you're going through right now.
My nephew, he got swag, so I think I passed that on to him.
From your brother.
Man, Warren's still a hater. To my son, what do I want to pass on? I think the biggest thing that I want to pass on is like opening a door of like opportunity and unlimited resources, right? And a part of like what we're in, we always have access. And people always ask me, do you want him to play basketball? I would love for him to play basketball if he enjoyed it.
And look
right?
look how well he'd be prepared.
He would be prepared, right? And I can open a door. I can open trillions of doors for you where you can walk into and like leverage it and take advantage of everything that I didn't have, right? But I also understand that to achieve the most success in this, you have to really love it, what you're doing, because when I was getting up at 6 a.m. to go run like the building, the steps in the building, it was because somebody said to me, somebody across the world is working harder than you, right? And that resonated with me. So for him to be great, or for any of these athletes to be great, somebody that's waking up at 6 o'clock to do some extra work, you got to love it to wake up at 5:30 and outwork that person and get up at 6. If you don't love it, you're not doing it. It's going to be tough to get out of bed at 9.
Yeah.
Like ankles are aching, back's aching. So I just want him to, you know, find something that you're passionate in and like work hard. And let me try and do my part to open as many doors as possible so that you can achieve the ultimate success for you. Now, would I love to sit down and watch hoops? I understand it the most.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that might not be the reality. For my nephew, he's actually found, like, he loves it, right?
Yeah.
He really has a passion in it, and trading off to him is passing off to him is like trying to understand, like, the work ethic.
Yeah.
Because the love is there, but again, it's a different culture. Like, it's a different time. So they don't necessarily go outside and just work on their handles. They don't go outside and play. And I think because he's been around it at such a young age, like when I was in the gym working out, when I was still playing, he would always be in the gym, like 2, like 3. He's been around Shea, he's been around Nikhil, all the guys that are in the NBA right now, like he's been in the gyms with them. So it becomes innate, right? And I think for him, it's just really understanding the work ethic. And we create for him, like, and what I always admired about being in the States is like the culture of the sport, right? You would have some of the biggest stars that are arm's length away. Like, they are from your backyard. So you understand, like, having that level of success is real. Like, for us, it used to be, we didn't have many kids. Like, you had Steve Nash, you had Jamal.
On the other side of the country.
Right? But we had Vince Carter, who he
Best
became
American.
a national, we adopted him as a national treasure. But all those figures, those were like mythical characters to us, right? It was still not real. For my nephew, it's like, Shay's a real person. Like, I worked out with him. Like, Nikhil's a real person. RJ's a real person. Like, I've been in the gym with them before, like, and had conversations and he's shooting the shit with them. They're having fun with him, as if no different than any other person. So, creating that space for him, but also having him understand, like, real work. Like, if you really want this, there's a world out there for you.
And I see that you're a big proponent. You've said that quite a bit. You're a big believer and firm believer in hard work.
Yeah.
You know, I think you accredit most of your success to that.
Yeah. Definitely. Because I think hard work, I think, okay, hard work, when you have that foundation meets opportunity, that creates luck.
Yeah. And that therefore gives you success.
That gives you success, or whatever you define it at. But without the work, a door is open. You really can't take advantage of much. And I just think, as an athlete, you're wired naturally to do more than the average.
100%.
Like, in whatever realm. Like,
I think that continues on.
Yeah. I'm just a firm believer in that. You can go into any establishment right now and start from the bottom, and I believe I'll be at the top. Just because, like, I know, and people complain a lot, right? So you hear people after work, how much they complain, they hate this, they hate that. But the time you're complaining, I will just outwork you. Like, it's not that hard. And I think even in, like, corporate space, you guys, they work in, like, such a limited window. Like, in sports, there's no working hours.
No.
Right? So if you're telling me all I have to do is work from 9 to 5,
Yep.
I can work from 9 to 7 and, like, do a little bit more on my own time
To get better.
just so I can get ahead of you, because I know you're only going to work in that time frame.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we could be yapping all day.
All day.
We'd have to do like 3 different episodes. So we're going to play our final game, and then we're going to talk a little bit more, and then we'll call it a day. So this one is called 4-3. You can answer any of the questions with one word or one sentence.
Okay.
I wrote these all myself.
All right. All righty. Oh, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
As much as you've given to the game has given you what?
Everything.
Okay. One thing you've learned about transition that nobody can teach you.
How many words you say?
One sentence or one word?
Okay, what's the question again?
One thing you've learned about transition that nobody can teach you.
It'll happen in the right time, not your time.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it'll happen in the right time, not your time. Because, again, as an athlete, you're wired to, like, you have a bad game, you go in the gym tomorrow, you're going to get up 100 of those same shots that you miss. You're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to knock them down the following game. It comes very quick. So you're accustomed to, like, you're accustomed to, like, having control over how you perform.
Yeah.
Outside of sport, you don't have that much control, and the results aren't that quick.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to trust that. And it could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 years, it could be 20 years.
But it will come.
But it will come with the...
If and when your son watches this, what do you want him to think?
Man, I love him. I love you. Yeah, just...
Well, that's great. That's a wrap. That's conclusion on the episode. I got one more thing to say. We've been working together now for like 3 years.
Yeah.
On the same broadcast team. And one of the things that happened was, I think last year Rachel was like, yeah, we should bring Shep on. But I wasn't ready to have that conversation with you.
Got you.
And I think part of that is because there's always been a natural competition. Obviously we're both in the same industry. I want to be on top of the industry.
You should.
Same way you do.
Yeah.
And what happens is my ego would get in the way of trying to be more inclusive. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be, more communicative, especially since we talk all the time together on the air.
Yeah.
And once I took a step back and realized that you have nothing to do with my success and I have nothing to do with yours.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as one of us is in this door, in this window, other people can follow.
Right.
And I need to take more solace and be more proud of that instead of trying to develop a competition that doesn't even exist.
Right. So, I appreciate that. And I'll say this. I didn't feel that I didn't feel that from your end, but a couple times I've been asked a question like, do you and Warren have
a problem? It's
problem?
Same thing.
And I'm like, it dawned on me, like I didn't think that. Because I'm also, what the difference is? Like, Warren is like I mentioned before, he's a social butterfly. So he can go around and talk to everybody 24/7. I'm actually like, at some point, believe it or not, I turn off. Like that switch goes off. Right? And like I didn't know if that had because the question kept coming. And I didn't understand from where it was new to me. And then I started to think, okay, I understand it because we're in the same business and maybe we're supposed to be competitors, but I didn't see it like that at all. Right?
I wanted to publicly go ahead and
I didn't. And at some point I thought maybe it's me, but I'm like,
no. And the reality is like in my mind, I don't like when people say like I hate to lose because that's wrong. It's a wrong attitude to have because everyone loses. I don't know anyone who's just been winning. What I hate is if I can't see a way to win.
Yeah.
And what happens is like you become, as a competitor, even this on your team, your teammates are your opponents.
Yeah.
It's 1-on-9 if you're playing in a game. You know what I'm saying?
So I would have no problem. Like I think when you are the space again, to your point, we all want the most out of whatever we're doing.
Exactly.
Right? And it was no different for me when you look at some of the people that are in certain seats and you work hard and you want the best for yourself as well.
There's a media training coming out. There's certain seats.
Yeah, certain seats.
We know
like,
the seats.
You are supposed to want to be in those positions,
absolutely.
Right? So to be honest, I take nothing from that.
Yeah.
Right? Like in your position, you're supposed to want to eat. Like in my position, I'm supposed to want to eat. Well, like, and if you don't, there's a problem there. That's actually a bigger problem. But no, like on my end, we have.
Yeah,
no.
I appreciate you coming through to do this, especially the circumstances. And I wanted to say that so that you understand. Like, I know my own shortcomings, and I have no problem admitting them. But I take more pride in the fact that we are in this space together. We're on the same broadcast team. We get to. Like, I know you understand basketball, so I can take more comfort in that than anything else. And what is meant to be will be, So
no, believe me, I haven't thought twice about it at all.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, that's good. And that's where we're going to wrap. Hey, if you like this episode, I'm sure you're going to like the other one. So please go do us a big favor. It really helps the podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share with a friend.